Hey, it's me, WWE Hall of Famer from the LOD, Road Warrior Animal. And you.
Yeah, I gotta do this when? Now? I'm watching a match. What is now? Now is... Oh, now. Yeah. Thanks. Hey, this is the Pharaoh from Monty and the Pharaoh. I just want to say thank you to our subscribers as we now have hit the 10,000 plateau. Thank you to all our subscribers out there. But I'm going to ask our subscribers to take the next step for us and become a full-fledged YouTube Monty and the Pharaoh member. Yes, that's right, folks. You can check it out. We've got 3 different levels. There's free shirts. There's free autographs. There's all sorts of perks for our members. There is nothing more we enjoy than giving you this program. And to do that, we need your support, and we appreciate your support. This is Jimmy Pharaoh, and don't forget to check out Monty and the Pharaoh every Thursday from Indie Music TV and on Cablevision here locally in New York. Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monty and the Pharaoh. Later. Is that good enough for you? Can I finish this? Lesnar's killing him. I'm pissed.
All right, welcome to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monty and the Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV, out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island. By the way, my wife has been busting my balls about that.
About what?
Because I say producing in Ronkonkoma, on Ronkonkoma. She says foreigners use on, and if we live here, it's supposed to be in.
Okay.
Thoughts?
That's fine. Why don't you take a little less heat? Hi, we're here in Ronkonkoma.
That's the star of the show, Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you, my friend?
Good. It's morning, and I'm actually forming sentences.
Actually, I am a little bit shocked.
So am I.
Tony Atlas getting a little heat from Thursday's show. Want to weigh in?
Did he? Regarding what? His answers to the rebuttal of the situation?
Well, I guess Tony had a little too much to drink, and fans weren't happy about that, or whatever else.
Okay, that was his prerogative. I thought he kept it clean.
I thought he did, too.
I thought
you thought about his viewpoints about going into business for himself?
What? That's not his right? That's his right.
That's why I'm asking you a question.
Tony woke up to the. He's got his internet connection now. He's got his computer, and he wants to do things himself. So let him.
Fair enough.
It's his call.
So,
go Tony.
Biggest thing on the docket today, besides the 2 superstars we have in studio, I was bringing my wife out to dinner yesterday, right? And I've got XM radio.
Yeah.
And I like listening to 80s on 8.
Okay.
Right?
80s on 8.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's 80s music, right?
Sure.
Stuff we grew up on.
Yeah.
Not you. You were kind of a metalhead. I get it, but
that's 80s.
I guess.
Maiden and Priest is an 80s?
But anyway, I thought I was thinking about you because Tommy Two-Tone came on.
Tommy Two-Tone. Yeah, he had a phone number, didn't he?
Yeah, 5309.
867-5309. Yeah, Jenny. Yeah, what about it?
Did you like that song?
Yes, I did. For a metalhead, yes, I did. For a guy who grew up with the Black Sabbath
me feel
and
good.
The Beatles, by the way, so don't get crazy out there. But yeah, I liked Jenny. Something wrong with it?
Did you call that number when you were younger?
I think everybody called that number.
How many times do you think you called?
Let me see. To be honest, I might have called once or twice, but I have no memory of it. It probably was just a disconnected line. Who would have that number during that time?
The only reason I brought it up, right, is I was thinking how good that song makes me feel.
It makes you feel
good. It makes me feel young.
What, like I ran from a flock of seagulls? That makes you feel good?
But being a musician, does it upset you that a song that simple became that famous?
No, of course not, because the Beatles had in the
By the way, Flock of Seagulls had more than one hit, though.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Space Age Love Song.
More than that.
Did they really? They
I
had.
think they had like 3 or 4.
Did they? Okay. No, the Beatles started on the simplest of terms with songs like "She Loves You." There's nothing wrong with a good, simple, catchy tune.
Oh boy, now we're comparing Tommy Two
No,
Tone
we're
to
not.
the Beatles.
No, we are not. But I'm showing the comparative of simple songs are just as good sometimes as "Stairway to Heavens." It all depends.
I'd like to thank the band that sings the theme song to the Monty and the Farrell Show. Own Jimmy Farrell, along with his partner Bart Griggs, make the band Wisteria Hall.
Yeah.
Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as our theme song, Riding High, In My Dreams, This Life, Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on the Wisteria Hall YouTube page, which we're asking people to give a little thumbs up, a little like, subscribe, show them some love.
You put 83750.
Whatever, right? Come on, dude.
867.
I mean, give me a break.
Oh, it's
I'm old. I'm
hilarious.
tired.
It's early.
Spotify, iTunes, and Reverb Nation. In case you didn't know it, this is the Monty and the Farrell Show, Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. You can see us on the Monty and the Farrell YouTube page, Facebook Live page. You can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor. You can see us on the Twitch TV Monty and the Farrell page. And if you live in New York, you can catch us 3 times a week on Channel 115 every Tuesday in the
Reduced version.
Thank you.
I hate when you do that.
Well, that's another thing my wife was bitching at me about.
What?
About
She doesn't
the-
agree with the reduced terminology?
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with that.
There you go.
All
Where you
right.
will see these 2 superstars in the reduced version from 7 to 7:30, and for early risers like 6 a.m. in the morning, which
Yeah.
I'm up at from 6 to 6:30 on Channel 115, and for the nightlife people like yourself, the
Thank you.
vampires,
Yes.
Channel 20, 1 a.m. to 1:30. So when you're home from drinking,
Or if you're home drinking and you
if
didn't go
you
out.
want to settle down, you can
you
catch a
decided to
little
stay
M&P along with these 2 icons. We'll be
Sure.
right back after this commercial break with the 3-time WWF Tag Team Champions, Money Inc. Yes, Money Inc. We are in awe right now, Mr. Ted DiBiase and Mike Rotundo.
See you in a sec.
And Nitro's Garage for all your automotive needs. Call 646-675-2349. That's 646-675-2349. For all your automotive needs, Nitro's Garage. Ask for Jack.
And APB, American Protection Bureau, voted #1 best on Long Island for all your security needs. Call 631-390-9050. That's 631-390-9050. APB. That's right, folks. Canine Corral. For all your dog daycare and overnight care, call 631-549-1544. That's 631-549-1544.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monty and the Farrell, only seen here out of Indie Music TV in Ronkonkoma, Long Island. In studio, we have the WWE Legends Hall of Famers, Money Inc. in studio, Mr. Ted DiBiase, and I was corrected, but I don't want to do it, IRS. So for the fans that get out there, don't get all uptight with me. I'm sorry. I like Mike Rotundo.
It's
Not
Rotunda.
It's both.
And then he threatened to kill me if I use Michael Wall Street, but I won't.
Oh, please. No.
Guys,
No.
I want to really, seriously, I want to thank you for coming in, taking your time. I know you got a busy day today. What an honor, a huge thrill to have,
Go ahead.
we were just
mark
talking
out.
about,
Mark out.
I'm marking out a little
Go
bit. We were
ahead.
talking about Barry Windham, what a huge fan I was of Barry.
Absolutely.
And what a huge fan I of you, Mike. And then, oh my God, it's Ted DiBiase,
by the way. Oh
the
my
guy
God.
that, drew more ratings than the Super Bowl
Yeah.
on a Friday night.
We'll get to that.
We'll
Yes.
discuss that. Did you know that, Ted? You
No,
seem a
I
little
didn't.
quizzical on
Ted's
that
like,
one.
I did?
Really?
You did.
We're going to find out.
I know it now,
Wow.
and I'll use it.
That's right.
As you should.
And by the way, at the Wrestling Universe, who they'll be signing at now, the prices has just gone up to $80 for autograph, just so everybody's aware.
Everybody's got a price. Oy.
WrestleMania right around the corner.
Yeah.
1 week away. Hulk Hogan, Titus O'Neil will be hosting WrestleMania. Many fans angry over the fact that Hogan is even involved in this. Not us. We're huge fans.
God.
In fact, Hall of Famer Mark Henry makes it clear that Hogan still hasn't apologized for his comments from how many years ago?
We're talking 10 almost at this point.
You guys want to weigh in on the cancel culture that's going on with this country right now?
I think it's sick. It's just like, to me, it's ridiculous. It is. It's, get over it. Grow up.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much from the old school of things too, as far as I think knowing your history can make you great. You learn from history, and history repeats itself. So the idea is not to repeat the bad, but keep the good. And everybody has an opinion, I get that, but sometimes it's gotten to the point where it's just totally ridiculous. For what reason? I mean, every society in the world has been oppressed one way or the other at some time throughout history, and you overcome it and try not to let it ever happen again.
And you're exactly right, Mike. And history does repeat itself. Again, it'll repeat itself as long as if you don't learn from the mistakes that are made. Right. And I think that there needs to be some things around, that we can look at and go, you know what, I'm going to make sure that never happens again. But to just to trample everything out, you can't do this, you can't do that, get rid of that statue and all that stuff because of that. No, it's all a part of our history. And again, it's a reminder of what we shouldn't go back to.
Are we becoming too soft as a society?
Wow.
I'll start it. I'll say yes.
I feel we are.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And how can we learn from our mistakes if we're so busy erasing our past? We'll have nothing back to look upon,
right?
To learn from.
I agree.
I'm confused by it.
Look, I'm a big animal advocate, right? Speciesism, right? Racism, speciesism, anti-Semitism, right? To me, they all fall into the same bucket. And look, I'm a huge fan of Hulk Hogan. I always thought he was he changed people's lives. That's what we're here on this planet, right? To change people's lives. And, my whole point is, how do we give someone like Hulk Hogan such a hard time? But with all due respect, Michael Vick, who tortured animals and killed hundreds and hundreds of animals, is being held up to this higher level. And you don't see this. It seems like such an imbalance that's going on here. Or is it just the fact that this country likes to knock people down so they can just build them up and knock them down again?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the public eye, you're in that situation one way or the other, and it's almost like the point where you're going to make some people happy, but you're definitely going to offend a lot of other people. So you're kind of riding this teeter-totter and don't know which direction to go, or step over this bounds, or you hide behind this building, or step out, front and center stage. It's hard to do this day and age because everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a cell phone, and there's no escape. So you really have to be careful what you say, where you say it, when you say it. And that's sad because, life should be at some time spontaneous, and you don't get that right to be able to do that like you would have 30 years ago or 20 years ago or 10 years ago, for that matter.
Why can't people differ in opinion and get along and discuss that opinion?
I don't know.
It doesn't have to be an angry battle. It's
right.
like, this is what I believe in, this is what you believe in, let's discuss
because
it like
there's
two
no
humans.
respect, know.
That's the
There
word.
it is. Bingo.
Right.
No respect.
The respect has gone
And
out.
Ted, it's got to be hard with you, preaching the word, to be able to keep that balance too, right? It's like, you got to be hard, right?
Well, and again, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
That's beautiful.
I love it.
And so, and I am unashamedly a Christian and a believer in Jesus Christ, and that's what I preach, and of course they're, it's sad, but, in our country today, that's being attacked.
Do you think there's any connection going back to 9/11 with the downfall it seems to be towards religion in this country? Because I hate to link the two, but I feel like on 9/11 a lot of things happened to our collective soul as a nation, and I feel like we've turned our back very much so on religion without even saying it or declaring it publicly. It seems to be the unsaid thing as part of the overall attack on the traditional values of this country. Any thoughts on that? I know it's kind of deep, but I wonder about that.
Well, I don't know if I would say 9/11 was the kickoff point, but I mean, I agree with you. But biblically speaking, if you believe the Bible, the first time God destroyed the world was because mankind became totally corrupt, immoral, and the whole ball of wax, to the point where He said, "I'm gonna get rid of it and start over."
Right.
And He did promise that, and He also says that it's going to happen again. In other words, the world, not just the United States, but the world is going to get to a place of immorality and depravity again, and the next time He destroys, it's going to be by fire, not by blood. Right. So, and again, I believe the Bible, so I mean, it's what's going to happen. And I've seen a lot of things in our country that I didn't think I'd ever see.
Right.
But I think the freedom of speech, in some cases, and by some, is trying to be impeded. Like, oh, you can't think that, or you can't say that. No, well, I'm going to stand for what I believe in.
Good for you.
Amen.
Amen. Can we recover as a country? Are we running out of time?
Well, I think we can, if we will. But the clock's ticking.
Yep. Feels like it. All right, on a much lighter note, although it's not very
Did
light.
you think that, hey, we're going into this wrestling interview, and now we're talking about...
Yeah, I thought it. This is Monty and the Pharaoh. Hey, guys. Yeah, I thought it. Absolutely. And I'm glad it happened. So anyway, this is a little less controversial or a little less sensitive, but not to a wrestling mark like me. The Hall of Fame, of course, is coming up in the very near future, and it starts the debate, as always, every year about who should be in. Well, first of all, Mr. Rotunda, Mr. IRS, you should be in the flipping Hall of
Michael
Fame.
Wall Street.
He told you not to call. All right, the dinner's going to be fun for you later.
Boy, I'm
later. But IRS should be in the Hall of Fame. Let's be serious here. It's an absolute joke, especially after they're just putting in the great Khali. Sorry, Khali. But any thoughts about possibly getting in the Hall of Fame one day?
Well, I don't really concern myself with stuff I can't control.
I do.
Well,
Get in. No, I'm sorry.
no, really. I mean, it would be nice to be, but it's not an earth-shattering thing for me. I, in my heart, know what I did while I wrestled, and I'm happy with that.
It should be.
So.
Should be, but you should be in. I mean,
I
Mike,
appreciate
we're
you
going to write a
saying
letter
that.
to the Hall, or are we going to start a campaign?
I'm pretty angry.
I
Gotta be honest with you, guys like yourself or Barry Windham. I know Windham got in with the Horsemen,
right?
But I mean, for Windham not to be in by himself, or for you not to be in by yourself, or for you not to be with the U.S. Express. I mean, what you guys did for that company. Again, we're huge WWE guys back in the day, huge Vince McMahon guys.
Yeah.
Far right, huge Donald Trump guy. So, but not to have you in is ridiculous.
Well, I appreciate you saying so, but like I said, I don't stress over things I can't control because there's no sense doing that. So
I think the call will come, to be very honest. I think it will come.
Who do you think should be in, like, as icons yourselves, like, when you look back and you see what's happening with the Hall of Fame? Because I think there is importance in this Hall of Fame.
Well, we were speaking earlier. I think Demolition definitely should be in there. They were a cool tag team, and there's a lot of people. If I'd have to look at a whole list, but
the wrestling,
like even the guy that started me in the wrestling business, Dick Beyer, and Ted knew Dick Beyer, the Destroyer. He literally was in Japan, a superstar over there with his own television show. I mean,
which is very unusual
for 7 years.
Extremely unusual in Japan. For somebody that's gaijin. Gaijin means you're a foreigner. You're not Japanese.
Right.
That was almost unheard of.
Plus, he had a outstanding career in the U.S. He just never was a WWE guy, so to speak. But he worked for Vern Gagne and territories out in San Francisco, and he was a well-known character, you know, and literally everybody laughs because he would wear his mask when he went back to Japan. Well, that was his whole thing. They had like the biggest TV rating in Japanese history, I think, and that still applies today, when Dick Beyer wrestled Giant Baba for the title.
There you go.
That's pretty big.
There you go.
I can't remember you'd have to look that up, what the TV rating was, but I think it still stands as the biggest rating they've ever had there.
Wow.
So,
Ted,
and
you enjoyed Japan with another foreigner who was treated like a wrestling god over there too, Stan Hansen, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, Stan,
What was that like?
It was great. I mean, I can still remember when Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody were a tag team, and extreme again another one of those teams that everybody watched that were huge. And when Brody jumped and went to New Japan, which was unheard of because loyalty is a very big thing in Japan, and the fact that he would jump from one company to another was just almost unheard of, and it was huge news. And then Stan comes to me and he goes, Brody's jumped to the other side. I need a new partner. Do you want the job?
Man.
I mean, my mouth dropped open. I said, are you kidding? He said, no. I said, absolutely. And so, and of course, it was short-lived because of the WWF. When I saw, when I picked up my newspaper and saw that Vince had put 93,000 people in the Pontiac Silverdome, I said it then. I said, I'm either going to have to be a part of that company or, because everything else is going to go away.
Well, that's funny. So you saw what was happening.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you were part of that whole beginning of this. How come you and Barry left?
young and dumb.
Good answer.
Okay.
Just,
Okay.
Young and dumb, man. We just said one day, and I didn't grow up in this business. I was only like 3.5 years into my career at that point. I had no idea what would happen, but we were just. And to be honest with you, I mean, that first year Barry and I were up here with WWF, we wrestled, I think, over 300 days. And we were you're at that point, the cracking point. And we used to call guys going AWOL, because you never went home. Oh, such is AWOL. Oh, he'll be back in a couple weeks. I mean, it was like that because it was so hot. Everything was selling out, and you would go to TV every 3 weeks and get a stack of tickets like that with rubber band around in your booking sheet on there, what towns you were going to. Every morning you were up at 6 a.m. taking 2 flights on whatever airline was going there. Get to the town, boom, same thing the next day. Yeah, I mean, it was nonstop, and it was tough, And I was young. Can't even mention like a guy that was, like in his mid-40s trying to keep up with that pace. And we just cracked one night and said, left. And I came back and finished my bookings. But it also worked out for me because what happened out of the situation, I went back to work for like NWA. And that was the first time I had ever started being a heel in the varsity club, which I thought worked really good. And then at least I had some experience leading up to when I ended up going back to WWF at the time to become IRS, and then team up with Ted and then go from there. But I had some experience. It would have been hard to switch over to heel if I'd have stayed in WWF.
Makes sense. But was that like a culture shock to you a little bit? Because it's funny you bring up the varsity club, because when I was in the military, we were talking about I was in Louisiana. Sometimes on a weekend, the NWA used to come through Monroe, Louisiana, right? So we walked up. Now, I grew up in the Northeast, big WWE guy. You couldn't pick up a ticket here, man. I used to go to Garden all the time, but once it really got hot, it was very hard to get tickets. We walked up, got front row seats for like $10, and the place was literally empty. And you were there, actually. It was like, maybe there's 100 people there. Was that like a culture shock going from the WWF to that type of environment?
Well, I remember. I think what happened was you probably went to a show when Turner took it over.
Yes.
And what the deal was with that, they didn't advertise anything. They didn't care if the live events made a dime because they paid Crockett so much and really stole the company from them for what they paid for them. Because that company back in the day, and you're talking the late 70s, early 80s, was making probably $20 million a year. Well, they paid the kids, each one of them, so much, didn't care about, because they're a TV business, so they didn't advertise the shows.
Right.
That's why they didn't draw.
Yeah, because it was stacked. Sting, Pays, all you guys
Right,
were on
they
there.
didn't care.
It was crazy.
It was a write-off for them.
Wow.
So your timing was very strange, that show you caught there.
That was freaking good.
Wow.
For me, it was
As
fun.
far as a culture shock, no, because you go somewhere and you deal with it. You deal with the consequences, and like WWE starting out was like, it was so hot because they took guys out of every territory and put them all together on TV, on a big TV, and they reached a lot of people, and of course they're going to draw. So it was new and exciting. So
I was at a show in we were having a show in Houston, and this is when I was in Mid-South. Mid-South was a huge territory.
Yeah.
I mean, all of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And then Bill Watts bought Houston, from Paul Bosch. And so, I mean, it was a big territory, and it was always a good territory. Bill Watts, in my opinion, was one of the smartest guys in terms of his understanding of the psychology of what we do. And he learned a lot of what he knew from a guy named Eddie Graham. And Eddie Graham learned most of what he knew from a guy named Dory Funk Sr. And but I was having a conversation with Bruce Pritchard, who lived in Houston, and Bruce said, I'm about to go to New York, and talk to him about a job. And, I was in the dressing room in Atlanta when Pat Patterson showed up, and that takeover happened. And Pat was assuring everybody, hey, everybody's got a job, nobody's, going to get fired, calm down.
Now, what is this, Black Monday? What they call Black Monday?
Yeah.
Thank you, okay.
And so I got Pat off to the side, and I said, Pat, there's a difference between having a job and having a position. And I said, all the positions are taken right now, so I'm gonna leave here, and I'm going back to work for Bill in Mid-South. When you got a position, let me know.
Wow.
So when Bruce went to New York, I just said, drop my name, let me know. But at the time, though, I had that great position. I had gotten that thing with Stan Hansen. And so, I had Japan there. It was like a lot of guys were panicking, like, what's going to happen? And so I go to Japan, and I get a message, call me as soon as you can. So I called Bruce, and he said, okay, 2 things have happened since you left. Number one, Bill Watts has just sold his territory to Jimmy Crockett. As soon as I heard that, I know Bill. Bill's a smart guy. He saw what was coming. He saw, look, I'm not going to be able to compete with this. And so he sold out. And so I told Bruce, and he said, the other thing is, Vince McMahon is very interested in you. And he says, when you get back, do not sign a contract with Crockett before you have a chance to talk to Vince McMahon. And, the rest is history.
So you mentioned Pat Patterson. Last December, we lost Pat Patterson. Can you guys share your thoughts on that?
Oh, gosh. Pat Patterson, another guy, in my opinion, who had a world knowledge and about the psychology of wrestling. And quite frankly, if I ever had a question about something I was asked to do, or if I ever needed, like if I got into a position where I needed some help, if he was available, he's always the first guy I'd go to. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think, he had something to do with the development of my character, which was basically Vince's idea. But Bruce told me that this was funny. Vince and him took a flight somewhere, and he said, "Bruce," he said, "I'm gonna prove a point to you. Everybody's got a price." So they're sitting in first class, and this was before you could still smoke on a plane, and Vince hates smoke. So this guy, either in front of him or behind him or next to him, this lights up a cigarette, and he says, "Man, I can you please put your cigarette out?" He says, I'm sorry. He says, "But I paid for my seat, da 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 da." And so he goes, "Man, I'll give you a couple $100, He says, "I'm sorry." He says, I said, "Look, I'll give you $500." And he says, I'm sorry." He says, "I'll give you $1,000." He puts a cigarette out and he takes the money. and he looked at Bruce. He said, "See, everybody's got a price." And so, anyway, that's. But I'm sure that Pat had something to do with the development.
Can you clear up one thing for me personally? So you're in the WWF or WWF at the time, and you're the North American champion, and they come up with this idea. I think Vince Sr. comes up with the idea of the Intercontinental title, and then you're supposed to have this match in
Rio de
Janeiro with Patterson for the Intercontinental.
Okay, what happened is the first time I went to New York, until then, my understanding was they had a world champion, world tag team champions, female world champion, and female tag team champions, and that was the only titles that they had. And so when they brought me in as the North American heavyweight champion. First time they introduced a new title to the territory. And so, I don't know, a little while went on, and I just happened to mention to Vince Sr., I said, Bill Watts has a North American champion in Mid-South. And he said, "I didn't know that." So that's what, it was kind of like a respect thing. And so they made up a story, is what they did, is that, like Pat beats me, for the North American title, and then goes off to this tournament in Rio de Janeiro where all of these champions put their titles up, and whoever comes out of that tournament, the winner, is the Intercontinental champion.
So there is no match. There is no tape on it. You can't find it.
No.
Because there's people claiming there's tape on it. Oh, I have it.
No, it never happened. It was a story.
Wait a minute. Pat was supposed to be Southern heavyweight champion. When did that happen? That's the other mystery to this whole thing. Mike, how about your memories of Pat?
Yeah, Pat was a great psychologist and had a lot of experience, and had seen a lot in the business and helped a lot of guys. I remember Pat mostly when Barry and I first started back in 1984. Pat was a producer / agent on the road, and I worked with him one time at a bar mitzvah. They booked us at this bar mitzvah somewhere in New York.
Patterson at a bar mitzvah.
Yeah,
right.
and that's what the kid wanted. That's what the kid wanted for his bar mitzvah.
Pat Patterson.
So we had three matches on the card, and I worked with Pat. And then we jumped in the car and drove to Washington, D.C. for our night show that weekend. It was crazy. So, but yeah, and I remember I had just gotten married, and I got my wife on the road, which was basically the only time we ever got to see each other. I brought her on the road because I was never home. And Barry had a girlfriend on the road, and so we come back. We made it through this snowstorm, and Barry and I are on last with Sheik and Volkov, and we come back, and our wife, or my wife, and Barry's girlfriend are in the back drinking pina coladas with Pat. And I'm like,
That's great.
but that's, and he was just happy. He was, "I'm so happy you make it here."
He's a good host.
Wait a minute. That's a pretty good imitation of Pat.
That
That is much better than you.
You're the one who imitates Pat. I've never even tried to.
I'm not even close to that. Can I hear another one?
You left the pressure on me. No.
We'll get a promo afterwards. He'll do Patterson.
I always want to know about your lives growing up and your parents. Can you both share about your parents and life growing up before wrestling?
For me, there was no life before wrestling because my dad was not only a professional wrestler, he had been a national amateur champion. In 1946, while he was still in the Navy,
right.
he won the AAU National Heavyweight Wrestling title.
Right.
And then post-Navy, he went to Nebraska and lettered 8 times, 4 years in football, 4 in wrestling. 3 years in a row, he was conference heavyweight champion for the University of Nebraska. And Mike came into my life when I was 5. He wasn't my biological dad. He married my mother when I was 5, and my mother's given name was Gladys Nevins, but her wrestling name was Helen Hild. My mother was also a professional lady wrestler,
right,
and a pretty dang good one.
Right.
And that's how they met, and they got married when I was in October of '59, when I was 5 years old. He came into my life, and the rest is history. I mean, that's like, the territorial days of wrestling, and he was a top performer everywhere he went. And again, had a tremendous relationship with Dory Funk Sr. I remember going to the first grade in Amarillo. I came back there, and I was in the 6th grade in Amarillo, and we came back again after my freshman year of high school. Left Nebraska and was going to finish high school in Texas, and my father died that summer. Working for Dory, and I went back and finished high school in Arizona, and then I had signed a scholarship to play ball at Arizona, University of Arizona. Wrestling comes on TV one day. I hadn't seen any wrestling for 3 years since my father's death, and it's the tape from Amarillo. So they're coming into Arizona to run some shows. So I go to Tucson and visit the Funks, and Terry says, "Hey," he says, "I can get you a recruiting trip to visit West Texas." He says, "Even if you've decided what to do," he says, "just come back and see everybody." And I said, that'll be great. And so I went. That's all it took. I got back around it. I got back in that atmosphere just for those couple of days. But I was smart enough to know that coming out of a very small school in southern Arizona, that West Texas State is probably a better choice for me than Arizona. But in the back of my mind was always wrestling. It's like, I'm going to get back around this, and it was always in my head. And so, biggest mistake in my life, I go 3 years college, play football for 3 years, get out of school. And at the end of my sophomore year, during the summer, I refereed in the territory. And I couldn't wrestle, but I could be a referee. You can learn a whole lot about the business being the third man in the ring. And then at the end of the next summer, at the end of my junior year, Dick Murdoch says to me, he says, "I'm going down to Mid-South to wrestle for Bill Watts." He said, "If you want to get your feet wet, I think I can get you booked." And so Bill went ahead and let me come in there, and I was going to wrestle for the summer and go back and finish school, and I never went back. Things went very well, very fast, and I still biggest mistake of my life. I mean, I was 1 year away from a degree in education, and
it's not too late, Ted.
You're right.
Just got 1 year.
I could still do it.
One more year.
That's too funny.
I could still do it.
I don't know if that's a mistake, though, man. I mean, considering what happened.
It worked out.
Oh, rats! I turned out to be the $1 million man. Darn it! Mike, how about you growing up before wrestling?
I grew up in upstate New York, basically on 180 acres of land.
Nice.
We had beef, cattle. My dad worked construction. My mom worked at IBM for like 50 years.
Wow. Okay.
I have one sister, which she still lives up that way near my mom. Basically, my dad was a good athlete and taught me pretty much everything I knew about sports, whether it was football. He played basketball and was a real good baseball player, so I did all those sports, but he got me geared towards wrestling because I I was a big husky kid and thought I would do better at that than basketball. And then basically I kept, working and ended up Tom Coughlin, the coach of the Giants,
Sure.
was my recruiter to go to Syracuse University.
Wow. Nice.
And used to show up in the summer. Some summers I'd stay home and some I'd stay in Syracuse, but I had a weight room there, and I'd work a job at a cable factory and then come back and I'm working out, and Coughlin would show up and say, okay, you're going down to the track with me. And I'm like, okay. After 10 hours of working and whatever, we go to the track, and he has me running 220s and 440s and 40s and whatever, so...
Is he the drill sergeant he appears to be? And I mean that in a good way. He's a legend here in New York.
He's a fair guy, though.
Fair.
Awesome. He's a fair guy. I remember a guidance counselor of mine sent him a letter because I transferred to a little bigger high school my senior year because to get a better look at getting a scholarship. So I remember we wrestled Ithaca, New York, Ithaca High School. I went to high school in Owego, New York, my senior year, which was a little bigger than the high school I came from, but not really that big. So it came down to, which it does a lot in wrestling, the heavyweight match. If this team heavyweight wins, this team wins, or that the other way, So I came down to one of those deals, and we used to get a good following. Our gymnasium was full there. We had a good wrestling team. So I pinned the kid pretty quick, and I'm coming off the mat, and Coughlin comes up to me like a kid in a candy shop. He was happier than I was.
There you go.
But he liked that, and that's the kind of person he was. So
he's a great leader.
So
obviously.
anyways, I ended up going to Syracuse and on a football scholarship and wasn't going to wrestle. And I told Ted this story the other day when we were in the car yesterday. One of the guys that recruited me to try at the state tournament to go to Syracuse Wrestlers, John Janiak, kept coming. I'd see him on the campus because he knew me from the state tournament. He says, come work out. Come work out with our heavyweight. Just roll around with him. You need somebody to work out with. So I finally went down to a wrestling practice, and I went there 2 or 3 days, and I told Janiak, I said, I think I can beat this guy. And he was a fifth-year senior football player, and I was a freshman, so he goes, challenge him to a wrestle-off, and I pinned him, and he quit. So because he was done. Well, he quit because he was done. He finished football, and he could relax the rest of his college days and not worry about it. So they go, you want to go to Florida? And we go down there on Christmas break and wrestle. And I said, hell yeah, let's go. So that's how I ended up. And after that, I got so close with the guys and on the wrestling team, I ended up doing both sports until my last year. I finished football and I sat out in wrestling, and 5 of us did that, and we came back the next year for a 5th year, and we won the Eastern Championships, and the only team we lost to that year nationally was Iowa. We beat Oklahoma State or whatever. We beat Lehigh.
Wow.
We had a really good team. So
And I really admire that because it's like Mike and I agreed on this. I mean, in today's, once it's very unusual to see an athlete who's doing 2 sports.
Yeah,
you're gonna, because you're gonna pick a sport, and you're gonna be on scholarship to play football, or you're gonna be on scholarship to wrestle,
right?
And because the wrestling coach is gonna go, hey, you ain't gonna play football. I don't want to, I want to see you get hurt, so you can't wrestle for me, and vice versa.
Right.
So you just don't see that very much.
Plus, you have to be a glutton for punishment.
Right.
Because you never get a break.
Right.
It was year-round.
But it's funny. You could see that your careers were heading towards something that was going to be super positive. I mean,
But I didn't know anything about wrestling.
I'm just saying in general, right? You guys are world-class athletes, and I mean that, right? College football players, college wrestlers.
He's pinning seniors.
Yeah,
as a
it's
freshman,
like that's a big
and then they're
deal.
quitting.
But
there's a clue.
But the thing of it is I had no conception about ever getting in this business because where I grew up in outside of Binghamton is where Owego is. Like WWF at the time was WWF, right?
Yeah.
So that would come on at like 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Sure.
WOR, midnight.
Sure.
In the Friday night or whatever.
Yeah, late
I
night.
didn't even know it existed. I swear to God.
So that's a good
And
point.
never had been to a pro match live until I was 23 years old and went with Dick Beyer. So it was like this. But I could tell the first time I ever went, Dick took me to Canada with him because he was working Montreal territory up there and Andre the Giant, Frank Valois, Gino Brito, and Dino Bravo owned the Montreal territory, and it was like a summer territory. And Dick was going up there. We'd go up there a week, and that's where I first met Andre. Killer Khan.
Killer Khan.
Killer Khan. I
Swede
love
Hansen
Killer
put
Khan.
me out with a sleeper in a bar because I was asking Dick. I said, "Does that really work?" And so
Nighty night, Bunny
Swede
Rabbit.
goes, "Come over here."
Right.
Next thing you know, they're whacking me in the back, and I'm like,
Mike and I have talked about this too. Some. I didn't realize when I first started, the incredible amount of talent that I was being exposed to when I first started. You named a lot of guys there
Yeah.
that could really go.
Right.
And when you get in a ring with those guys, you got a lot better chance of picking it up than than being with somebody that knows less.
You had the fast track to learning.
Yeah. And so when I went to work for Vince was, Dick Murdoch, Killer Carl Cox. Oh my gosh, so many different guys came through there that were just they weren't good wrestlers. They were great wrestlers.
Right.
And I didn't know what I was at the time, but now I appreciate it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that completely because I went to Germany to start. Then I was going back and forth, and I did maybe 2 shows, a couple shows a week, driving up to Canada. And I worked, I think Dick got me booked at a show in Toronto Maple Leafs Gardens. So I worked a show. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Johnny Weaver and said, "Hey, kid," because I worked with Jesse Ventura, and he beat me in like a minute at the Cadillac tournament.
Wow.
And Jesse says to me before, "This is Governor. Listen, kid, take it easy," because he knew I was the amateur. He goes, "Don't stretch me." And I'm like, okay. So he beat me in like a minute and a half, whatever. So Weaver calls me. So I called Dick and said, "What do I do?" He goes, "Go to Charlotte." And when I got to Charlotte, Wahoo had just taken over the book. Slaughter was there, Kernodle, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Jay Youngblood, Don Morocco, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., Greg Valentine, Ric Flair,
This list.
Oh my God.
Whose list?
Jake Roberts, who I lived with for 4 months, and that was quite an experience.
Oh, wow.
I got to hear about that one.
Wow, and you survived.
You never told me that.
I
Nicely
can't
done.
probably tell any of those on here.
With that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with 2 of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time, Money Inc.
See you in a sec.
You need a body shop? You need engine repair? Auto Excellence, Collision Specialists, 631-261-6420. That's 631-261-6420. Auto Excellence.
The Monty and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite 4-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items,
autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monty DeFaro, only seen here out of Indie Music TV.
Yeah.
On the couch, the icons, Ted DiBiase and Mike Rotundo.
IRS.
Okay.
Get it straight. However, this is a question directed at Mike Rotunda. Back in the day, your team with Barry Windham. And the more I think about this, I'm going to continue to rail on about this. Not only could you possibly be in the Hall of Fame one day for IRS, you could be in the Hall of Fame for your time with Barry. You could be in your Hall of Fame also for your time with Money Inc. So that's 3 different complaints I'm going to be filing, Vince. Just look out for the envelope with the pyramid in the corner from the Pharaoh.
That'll go right to the trash.
Oh, you know it well. This will be like, it's him again. But thoughts on those days with you and Barry? Because that team was flipping amazing. What are your memories of those days with Barry?
If I could just add in one thing before you answer that.
Yeah.
Real American was your theme song.
Oh, my God.
Until they stole it and gave it to Hogan. So
Right.
you're getting
Thanks
money
a lot,
from that,
Terry.
too?
Well, that's because we left.
That Hogan, man. Unbelievable. Always
What
thinking
you going to do, brother? Oh, my God.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Those days with Barry was fast paced, brother.
Yeah.
Just whoa.
Yeah.
We were on the move, and we had a lot of fun. Dusty put Barry and I together in Florida when
Dusty.
I first went down there after I was in the NWA in the Carolinas. Dusty called Crockett's and said, I need a young baby face to go down there. So I moved down to Florida. A week later, they teamed me and Barry up, and it just clicked, And we were
Right away.
We were both young and partying and out all night, and just.
Were you guys like rock stars back then? I mean,
I
look
think-
at Barry, for God's sake.
To be honest with you, I can remember getting out of the car, and we were in bum, Pennsylvania, up on some mountain,
I've been there.
and people just went, "Oh my God!"
Converged.
And it's crazy because the TV was so strong. It was like on ABC or NBC, CBS. Everybody got it.
Yeah.
So when you got out of the car, I mean, just people, it was freaky.
The girls
it really
screaming
was.
like the Beatles.
Yeah, it was
I
crazy.
believe
it
it.
really was. And
I
Barry,
believe it.
yeah, girls loved Barry.
So
can imagine.
we didn't have a lot of like Florida from up here, right? So because the way TV worked, so we used to read in PWI. So when you formed that team with Barry, it was hot, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
When